At L&M Fine Jewelry, we hand select our diamonds to give you the very best prices possible. Monty knows a great deal when he finds one. Find your great deal at L&M Fine Jewelry.
Your diamond destination.
Okay, we are going to be talking about a Big Sky Conference play preview. Big Sky Conference play is about to begin this week. Week 5 of the FCS season. Week 5 is about to get kicked off. It's been an amazing season so far. The conference is starting to shape itself. I mean, I can't even say that the conference is starting to shape itself out, but some of the haves and have-nots in the Big Sky Conference have definitely established themselves. Montana State, Idaho, Montana, not Weber, sorry. No offense to Weber State. UC Davis and Sac State, they've definitely set themselves apart, but we're going to be previewing all the games in the Big Sky Conference. I'm so happy that Big Sky Conference play has finally started because I can't imagine covering the CAA conference. There's 16 or 17 teams in that conference. If I had to preview every non-conference game for the CAA, I mean, I'd never get done. Finally, Big Sky Conference being one of the top 3 biggest conferences in the FCS. Finally, there's less games to preview. One note, Clifton McDowell is coming back to the Big Sky Conference this week to play Weber State. We'll get to that game later. You got Cal Poly and Northern Colorado, the battle of the bottom. Obviously, Portland State, I think I had 11 in my poll. 10 was Cal Poly. You got number 10 and number 12 in my Big Sky Conference poll playing against each other. Cal Poly, Northern Colorado. I'm obviously going to pick Cal Poly to win this game. I don't think very highly of Northern Colorado. They've struggled ever since they've been in the Big Sky Conference. I've never really seen them to be stiff competition. I was part of a team. I was a redshirt, but I was a part of a team that lost to Northern Colorado and Greeley back when they had the grass. That was back in 2016. We don't have to talk about that. But Northern Colorado, they're 0-4. Cal Poly's 1-2. They play this week. It's going to be an interesting game. I mean, go tune in. It's at 1 p.m. on ESPN Plus. That's the first Big Sky Conference game being played this week. You guys can tune in if you want. I'm not telling you not to tune in, but you can do what you want. You can go watch that game. It's on ESPN Plus being played in Greeley, Colorado. Go tap into that game if you want. Next, we have Sacramento State against Northern Arizona. Obviously, I think very highly of Sacramento State. Those feelings have been recent. I didn't think super highly of them to start the season, but they've really... statistically, they've really shown me something. Obviously, stats can be deceiving. We'll see what they do when they play on the field. I haven't watched a ton of Sac State games. I've really only looked at the box scores, so I'm not going to judge them without watching some of their games. Sac State plays Northern Arizona this week. And one of the reasons why it's been hard to watch their games is they played those 2 FBS games, and they were on, CBS or they were on a weird network. Either way, they're playing on ESPN Plus this week at 2 p.m. That's going to be the second Big Sky Conference game being played this week. I'll probably get a chance to watch a lot of that game. They play... on Saturday on ESPN Plus in Flagstaff, Northern Colorado, or Flagstaff, Arizona, against Northern Arizona in the dome, in the altitude. Sacramento State, that's going to be a good test for them, a decent test for them. I think, they haven't necessarily been tested. They played some FBS opponents, but from an FCS standpoint, I don't think Sac State's been tested majorly this year. Obviously, they lost to Fresno State. Obviously, they lost to... who was the other? Fresno State, and they lost to San Jose State. They played those games pretty tightly, but then they beat Nichols and they beat Texas A&M Commerce. So I'm very interested to see what they're able to do against a Northern Arizona squad that might have something to prove in the Big Sky Conference this year. We'll see. But Northern Arizona, Sac State, that game is being played in Northern Arizona. They're both 2-2. Decent way for Sacramento State to kick off Big Sky Conference play. We will see how that game turns out. Next, you got Portland State at UT Chattanooga. UC Chattanooga. Obviously, Portland State played Weber State a couple of weeks ago to kick off their conference schedule. So that is why Weber State is currently at the top of the conference standings, because they're 1-0 and nobody else has played a conference game. Got to believe that'll work itself out. But they play UT Chattanooga, who's 0-3. Portland State's 0-3 as well. There's a chance for them to get their first dub this season. Should be very interesting for them. I think earlier I said they were 1-2. They're not 1-2. They haven't got a dub. They're 0-3. Northern Colorado's 0-4. So I take back what I said earlier. Misstep by me once again. I'm so sorry. I'm still learning and getting better. Please stick in there with me. But Portland State, UT Chattanooga. It's funny that UT Chattanooga is 0-3 this year because they were a playoff team last year. And this is one of the reasons why I mentioned that, Portland State was going to have a tough schedule this year. They've currently played Mercer. They lost 10-3. They played Georgia State. They lost by 3. They played Tennessee. They lost by 66. So they've had a tough schedule. They still could end up being one of the better teams in the country this year. They got a decent conference schedule. They play East Tennessee. They play Furman, who I don't think is as good as this year, but they play Western Carolina, Sanford, Austin Peay. We'll see how they end up. But they play Portland State this week. That game is going to be played in Tennessee, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, obviously, is where they play their games at. But that could be a decent game for you guys to pay attention to. Portland State potentially could get a dub there. I don't know. I would pick Chattanooga in that game, but we will see. That game's being played at 4 p.m. on ESPN Plus in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Next, we have Montana State versus Idaho State. Montana State should absolutely roll Idaho State by at least 21 points. I would pick them as a 3-point favorite if I were a bookmaker. There's currently no betting lines on this game. Currently, I gotta believe they'll drop right before the game happens, but they're playing against Idaho State. That game is going to be played at 4 p.m. in Pocatello, Idaho. Montana State's 4-0. Idaho State is 2-2. That game shouldn't be a super exciting game. I probably won't tune into that game super actively, but who knows? Any given Saturday, any team could lose. This is college football. You got to show up when your number is called. You got to show up when the games are being played. So I foresee Montana winning that game by multiple touchdowns, but Idaho State could shock the country. They could shock the nation. We will see. We will see. Next on this list is Montana versus Eastern Washington. Montana currently is 3-1. Eastern Washington is 1-3. This is Montana's chance to get their first dub at the Inferno, their first dub on the red turf of Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington has not looked like one of the better teams in the country. They've lost some nail biters to Sela. They lost a nail biter to Drake. They beat a Monmouth team who, put up a lot of points on them. And then they obviously lost to Nevada by, 40. Eastern Washington has looked not great this year. Defensively, they haven't looked great. I keep talking about it. I don't want to keep talking about Eastern Washington. That game is being played on Saturday in Eastern Washington, in Cheney, Washington, at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. You guys can go tune into that game. I think that game is going to be very, very interesting just because Montana's never won there. My top game in the conference this week is honestly that Idaho UC Davis game, but that could be another interesting date. That'd probably be like my third game to watch this week. I'm obviously going to be tuned into it because I cover Montana. I cover the Big Sky Conference, and I do the pregame, postgame show as well, so I have to watch the game because I got to be able to talk about it. But that would be like my third top game to watch in the conference. If you were asking me what were the top games, I'll go over my top games to watch at the end of this video. But Montana versus Eastern Washington. Can Eastern Washington steal one against Montana? Can Montana stay trending upwards as they have been the last couple of weeks? I think they did some really good things against Western Carolina. They did some really, really good things against Morehead State. Obviously, Morehead State's not that great. They were supposed to beat them by 50. But we'll see what they're able to do. We will see what they're able to do. It should be Montana should be able to handle them. I'll tell you right now, Montana should be able to handle them. If they don't, that's very concerning for Montana. Weird things happen when conference play gets started. These conference teams know each other a little better than some of these non-conference teams, so it's going to get interesting in these next couple of weeks. But that game's being played at 6 p.m. in Cheney, Washington on ESPN Plus. Tune in. Next, you got McNeese versus Weber State. This is one of my top games of the week. Weber State, I think, is a good team. Weber State's now will have played two Southland Conference teams, McNeese, and they played Lamar. They lost by 1 to Lamar. I would honestly pick McNeese to win this game. They're 3-2. They're looking like the best team in the Southwest Conference currently. Clifton McDowell is leading that team. He's been playing absolutely amazing. You can take it to you can take it up with your mama if you want to argue with that. I think Clifton McDowell has looked really, really good this year. Really, really good this year. He's looked like a really good quarterback in that Southland Conference. He's been leading that team. He looked like everything he looked like last year. He's honestly been throwing the ball better this year than he did last year. I don't know what that's for. Maybe it's the warm weather. Maybe his hands were cold last year. I don't know, but he's looked really good throwing the ball this year. looked really, really good. Maybe they give him more opportunities to throw the ball too. That might be something that, plays a part into it. They really made a concerted effort to run the ball with him on the ground. He's really throwing the ball all over the place with McNeese. He's looked really good. They're 3-2. They take on a 2-2 Weber State, who's lost a couple of close games. They lost to Washington and they lost to Lamar. Their victories coming against Northwestern State and Portland State. So I don't know. Weber State's an interesting team. They lost to Lamar. Lamar could end up being a really, really good game. But they play at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. That game is going to be played in Weber, Idaho. Not even Weber. I think they play in Ogden, Idaho. They don't even play in Weber, which is weird. Yeah, they play in Ogden, Idaho. Ogden, Utah. That game is going to be played in Ogden, Utah. Weber State will take on McNeese State, a.k.a. take on Clifton McDowell. That's how I describe that McNeese State team. Every time I see them now, they're taking on Clifton McDowell. I would pick Clifton McDowell to win that game, but you guys can go tune into that game, 6 p.m. That's going to be my second best game to watch in the Big Sky Conference this week. And last on the list, my number one Big Sky Conference game this week is Idaho versus UC Davis. 3-1 Idaho versus 3-1 UC Davis. That's probably going to be one of the best games in the country to watch this week. Two ranked opponents. UC Davis is highly ranked. I think they're top 15, and I think Idaho is top 15 as well, or Idaho's number 4. I don't foresee them moving up. You still got North Dakota, South Dakota State, and Montana State ahead of them, so I don't foresee them moving up too high. But, Idaho versus UC Davis, this is going to be a really, really good game. A good test for UC Davis, Land Larison, Miles Hastings, a good test for that offense to play against a really good defense, a really, really good pass rush, a really good pass rusher in Keyshawn James Newby. They got some really good defenders. Abraham Williams is a great returner, a great cornerback. I can't remember their other cornerback's name, but he's a really good player as well. Idaho has a really good defense. They got a really good squad. They fly around. They make plays. They get to the quarterback at a high level. UC Davis obviously has one of the best offensive players in the conference in Land Larison. How is he able to affect the game? He's going to need to affect the game if they want to get this dub. They got to get Land Larison active. They got to get him active in the passing game, got to get him active in the running game. He has to be a factor if they want to win this game 100%. Defensively, UC Davis has to shut down. Idaho likes to run a lot of tricky stuff on offense. They like the flea flickers, the Wildcat offense, running things off of the Wildcat. They get a lot of people involved offensively. They show you a lot of looks, and, they make plays. They make plays. They got good playmakers, but there's no one star on that defense, on that offense for Idaho. I would say if UC Davis is going to beat Idaho, they're going to have to get to Jack Wagner. It's going to have to be through him. They're going to have to affect him. They're going to have to stop the run. Idaho, isn't running the ball super, super successfully, but they get the job done on the ground. They get the job done in the air, and it leads to wins for them. They're successful offensively. So that is my top game in the Big Sky Conference. I mentioned that I would say my top. I've said them kind of as I'm going along. My number one game in the Big Sky Conference is Idaho versus UC Davis. That's going to be a top-ranked game in the conferences in the country this week. That's going to be one of the best games in the country to watch. Two Big Sky opponents, two nationally ranked opponents playing against each other in Davis, California. The number 2 game in the Big Sky Conference this week is not even a Big Sky Conference game. McNeese versus Weber State. That's going to be a really good game to pay attention to. I think that's a game people should pay attention to and watch to see, you'll get a good gauge about Weber State. You'll also get a good gauge about McNeese. If you care about McNeese in the Southland Conference, I think that'll give you a good idea of how good they are. And then my third game is Montana versus Eastern Washington. I hesitate to say Montana versus Eastern Washington and really look at that Sacramento versus Northern Arizona game. I want to see how Sacramento State does against Northern Arizona. They're playing against an FCS opponent who I think is a decent FCS opponent. I haven't even really looked at Northern Arizona, what they have done this year and who they've beat. I'm pretty sure they beat Utah Tech last week. Yeah, they beat Utah Tech last week. They just lost to Incarnate Word by 24. They played Arizona very tight. I know Arizona's not great, but they played Arizona tight when they were ranked 20th, and then they beat a school called Lincoln. So very interesting. They lost to a Southland opponent who probably isn't one of the better Southland Conference teams. They're probably middle of the pack in the Southland Conference, but I think Incarnate Word could shake things up in the Southland Conference with McNeese and Lamar currently sitting at the top right now. But I'm going to say Idaho, UC Davis is the number 1 game. McNeese, Weber State is the number 2 game. And then Montana versus Eastern Washington is the number 3 game, with Sacramento State versus Northern Arizona being another game for you to look at. That's like 4 3B, 3A is Montana, Eastern Washington. 3B is Sacramento State, Northern Arizona. You guys let me know what you guys think about those Big Sky Conference games. What are you most excited? What game are you most excited to watch? What do you think will turn out for these games this week? And what do you guys think? Just tell me what you guys think. Leave a comment down below, and I will move on.
If you want an insurance agent with deep Montana roots and ultimate trust, contact Ben Martello at Hub International Insurance. Ben's been working in the insurance industry for more than 2 decades, but he's also owned local businesses in and around Missoula for years and years. His family has been here for generations, and he has a deep love for both Missoula and Western Montana. If you're in the market for personalized insurance like home or auto insurance, Ben's your guy. He provides services in Missoula and Ravalli counties. He also gives back to the community in a variety of ways, including serving as the chair of the Frenchtown Rural Fire District Board. Contact Ben Martello Jr. at Hub International Insurance in Missoula today. You can reach him on his office line, 406-542-5126, or you can email him at ben.martellojr@hubinternational.com. Hub International, striving to be everywhere risk exists today and tomorrow.
Okay, next we are talking about my top Big Sky performances of week 4. Who do I think balled out this week? Who do I think had a game of games? Who do I think really put their stamp on college football this week? First, we have Eli Gilman. Per ESPN stats, they said he rushed for 14. He had 14 carries, 176 yards, a touchdown, and averaged 12.5 yards per carry. He's averaging 10 yards a carry on the season. He's only rushed the ball like 45 times this season. He's looked absolutely amazing this year. Looking like one of the better backs in the country. He's 5th in rushing yards currently in the country, 1st in yards per carry, 7th in yards per game at 114. I mean, he's looked really, really good. Eli Gilman has looked really good. That was a really top performance this week. He really gave Montana a spark this week. So look for him to keep being a bell cow for Montana. At number 2, you got Keali'i Ayat of Montana. The only reason I put him on here, he had 11 carries, 57 yards, 4 touchdowns. 4 touchdown runs, 2 of those quarterback sneaks, 2 of them on scrambles, but that was a Montana record. Maybe shouldn't have put him on there. You know, anybody can get a couple 5-yard touchdown runs, but really, really great performance there. Don't judge me, okay? Keali'i Ayat had a really good game. We'll see how he bounces back. Seems like he got a little banged up towards the end of the game. He didn't finish the game, but hopefully he's able to play against Eastern Washington. We will see. At number 3, you got Tommy Mellott of Montana State. He was 14 for 18, 212 yards, 3 touchdowns, 78% completion percentage. He absolutely balled out. I didn't put his rushing stats on there, but no need to put his rushing stats on here. 14 for 18. That's amazing. 78% completion percentage is amazing. 3 touchdown passes is amazing. 200 passing yards is amazing. They forced him to throw the ball. He did, completing a lot of his passes at a high clip, high completion percentage, and throwing 3 touchdown passes is amazing. Obviously, it was against Mercyhurst. They rolled Mercyhurst. But, you know, Tommy Mellott has been playing really good football this year, taking care of the ball besides the couple fumbles that he had early on in the season. Outside of that, he's played really good football this year, and Montana State has looked like a really, really good football team. At number 4, you have Brody Grebe. We're actually going to talk about both of the Grebe brothers, but Brody Grebe of Montana State had 4 total tackles, 2 solo, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. His brother had 8 total tackles, 3 solo, 1 sack, a tackle, 1.5 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. They balled out. Brody Grebe obviously having 2 sacks. His sack numbers haven't been as high as, say, a Keyshawn James Newby or a Hayden Harris, but he's had a really good season. Obviously, he's one of the better players in the conference. People are more aware of him than they are of Keyshawn James Newby and of Hayden Harris. But he's balled out, man. Brody Grebe is a good player, a player to watch. He's wearing that legacy number from Montana State. Yeah, he had a really good game on Saturday against Mercyhurst. The newest, as Sam Herder mentioned when he posted that they won, the newest FCS member in the subdivision. So take that for what it is, but I'm pointing out the best games in the Big Sky Conference. At number 5, you have Lan Larison of UC Davis. I think this is the second week in a row that he made it on here. He had a really good game against Southern Utah last week as well. 28 carries, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4.3 yards a carry, 5 receptions, 43 yards, 1 touchdown for 163 total yards and 3 total touchdowns. Touched the ball 33 times. Man has been balling. Land Larson was Offensive Player of the Year in the conference last year for a reason, and I think he's making a strong case to be such this year. If he can keep on, if he can keep healthy, Land Larson's a really good player. He's a dog. He's balled out this year. Looking for him to continue his stellar play. They play Idaho this year. This week. I mention it. They're a very stingy defense. A very, very stingy defense. It'll be very interesting to see how Land Larson is able to affect that game. Miles Hastings, how is he able to affect that game? How will they play offensively? Defensively, I don't know. It could be a pretty good game defensively for Idaho and UC Davis, but offensively is what I'm really looking at for what is UC Davis going to do offensively. What are they going to do offensively? Because that Idaho defense is stingy. And then my last top performance, Big Sky performance of week 4 is somebody who I haven't heard of in the Big Sky Conference so far this year, but they had a really good game against, who did Weber State play? I'm pulling it up right now. I'm so sorry. Weber State played, not Lamar, that was last week. They played, Northwestern State. They won 39-0. That doesn't negate the fact that their player had a really good game. Kamari Mounier-Bailey. It's Mounier, but I gotta believe it's the E and R are silent, or even the R is silent. Mounier. Kamari Mounier-Bailey for Weber State. 8 total tackles, 7 solo, 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. This guy balled out. Absolutely balled out. Kamari Mounier-Bailey, salute to your brother. I don't know how good Northwestern State is. They had some tragic things happen at one of their games last year that caused it to be like a no contest. And then, there was some turmoil going on with their team. I think they canceled the rest of their season last year. Can't remember exactly what's going on, but there's a lot going on at Northwestern State negatively. They're trying to bounce back and recover from what happened last year. But that doesn't negate the fact that the ball was rolled out there. They were keeping score, and Kamari Mounier-Bailey balled out. 8 total tackles, 7 solo, 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. 6 tackles for loss? I mean, was this man living in the backfield or what? Oh my gosh, what a great game for him. He's a defensive end for Weber State. Amazing game. Absolutely amazing game. I should have talked about him first. 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. 6 tackles for loss? What are we talking about right now? Amazing game from Kamari Mounier-Bailey. Amazing. You guys let me know if I missed out any top performances. Were there any top performances that you guys saw that I should have mentioned? Who did I miss? Who should I have mentioned? Who did you guys think balled out this week? Who are you guys interested to see if they have a great game this week? Let me know, and I will move on.